Hello and good evening. This presentation represents findings from an interview conducted regarding strategic planning at MATC. My interview was conducted with the co-chair of the Strategic Planning Core Committee, Myra George. She worked alongside Dr. Christine Mannion, the Vice President of Institutional Effectiveness, who was unable to interview. Myra is currently an English instructor who serves on several committees at the college, to include chairing the Diversity Inclusion Committee, strategic planning committees, and other committees involved with the Center for Teaching Excellence. Myra is regularly involved in transformative work at the college. This interview discussed the entire strategic planning process from inception to implementation. This interview was based on the planning cycle for the recently approved Transformation 2025 Strategic Plan for Milwaukee Area Technical College. When asked about the specific model used at MATC, Myra described the process as being twofold. First, the planning stage followed more of a hybrid model of a goal-based approach in using alignments. Within the goal-based area, they basically allowed the questions, what do they want to achieve and how will they achieve it, to guide their inquiries. This was coupled with alignment, which allowed them to connect the what to the how. Beyond the planning stage, the balanced scorecard method was used within the implementation stages. The use of priorities, goals, key performance indicators were evident. The balanced scorecard method is followed closely in implementation. Currently, MATC uses a 5-year cycle for strategic planning. There is also a 1-year planning stage that takes place the year prior to the end of a current cycle. This year of planning is used to create the next strategic plan to be used by the institution for the next 5-year cycle. The planning team for the next strategic plan is made up of many different people from across the college. It includes people from faculty, staff, and administration. MATC also draws on initiatives that are already taking place throughout the college. Committees such as those associated with guided pathways, diversity and inclusion, and others are tapped to provide people and input. A faculty member and a high-level administrative member co-chair this core committee, which is charged with creating the next strategic plan. This committee exists for 1 year and then is dissolved until the next cycle begins. The planning phase is very involved with many steps along its 1-year lifespan. The college begins with analyzing data it already has, such as data from current initiatives or other institutional data. The president will offer her input into the strategic plan, sharing her vision for the next 5 years. From that point, environmental scanning begins tapping into the input from community partners such as business and industry, student experiences, the PK-12 system, and 2- and 4-year partners. As strategic planning at MATC is centered on the student experience, a student experience statement is drafted, acting as a guiding principle as they are the most important stakeholder. Based on the student experience statement, a survey is developed and shared with the community partners again. This is a second round that drills down further and focuses on what is learned thus far. Happening at almost the same time, the mission, vision, value statements of the college are revisited or revised. Both the college and the district board are involved in this step. This is the only involvement of the district board within the strategic planning, as these processes reside within the college. Internal surveys are sent out college-wide to present and seek input on the mission, vision, value statements. Final versions derive from this process. Eventually, workshops become the next step to further refine information gathered to this point. Initially, they are charged with determining strategic priorities. Surveys are developed based on these results and distributed across the college. This process is taken even further into smaller groups where strategic priorities are further refined into objectives housed within the strategic priorities. Based on these results, surveys are developed and distributed college-wide. Champions, otherwise known as those in charge of priorities, are determined based on who would be most suitable to oversee strategic priorities. These are headed by vice presidents and supported by deans. The entire plan will be cascaded throughout the college in a top-down manner. At this stage, the cascade plan is developed to frame the implementation process. At this point, the strategic plan has reached its final approvals and will be unveiled to the community. This is typically done with great fanfare. However, 2020 had a different plan for MATC, and the onset of the pandemic caused the release of Transformation 2025 to be demoted to email communication and a pre-recorded video detailing the outline. When I asked Myra about difficulties encountered with the strategic planning process, there were a couple of key items discussed. First, they found it difficult to elicit participation from those involved in the processes along the way. Survey return rates were difficult to gain high numbers in, and getting people to participate in various small groups was not always easy. I offered my own insight into this point, as I did not know much about the strategic planning at the time, and often the countless emails received about smaller details within the planning stages held little meaning to me. Many things seemed out of context when communicated. Myra agreed with this, that communication can also be a challenge in the process. Another area of difficulty was the many different initiatives that were going on at the college at the time. Guided Pathways, the 21st Century Movement, and the pandemic causing a shift to online learning, and strategic planning priorities all became too much to handle all at once, and faculty at the college pushed back. Another area of difficulty was the planning stages. Myra reflected that too tight of timelines were established, which did not allow for adjustment when needed. When I asked Myra the most important part about strategic planning was, she stated, creating a sense of ownership. It was incredibly important that they gain buy-in from the people in the college and the supporting community. There needed to be a sense of ownership for this to happen. This required constant involvement of everyone at the college during the planning stages and will continue to be a part in the implementation stages as well. Securing funding for the initiatives that result from strategic planning is equally important, so that the strategic plan is not a static document that sits upon a shelf. Resources are often associated with eliciting change. Within this graphic, it shows the hierarchy of elements within a strategic plan. At the highest level resides the strategic priorities. These are broad statements that guide the processes beneath them. Objectives, sitting below the strategic priorities, become more specific and become initiatives within the strategic priorities. Goals and action plans towards the base of the pyramid are the means of achieving the objectives. Implementation takes place over 5 years. The plan is cascaded through the college in a top-down manner. Champions, the vice presidents, oversee the strategic priorities while cascading their vision down through the deans and those that work with them. Objectives are tasked to the deans as champions. From there, the deans will create goals and action plans in order to achieve objectives. Currently, I am starting to co-chair a committee charged with a goal and action plan regarding one of the objectives. This charter is housed under the Strategic Priority 1 and Objective 3 relating to the accessibility to technology for students. Now that I have a better understanding of the strategic planning process, I can see where my ownership resides. This is an incredibly important concept as I did not have this prior to the semester. Nor did I realize that I was truly working on strategic planning through my work in various committees. MATC has work to do in the area of communication to improve this outcome so more people understand the importance of their work at the college and how it fits into the larger picture. The remaining 2 slides represent the questions that were asked during the interview. I had a total of 12 questions. Thank you very much.